Yeah, hello and welcome to a new episode of our weekly Spielworxx chat. My name is Uli Blennemann, and we are having a guest today, one of the nicest and kindest person in the whole industry, designer Jason Dinger. Welcome, Jason. How are you?
Fine. I'm happy to be here.
So I'm happy having you here as a guest. But before we start, as Jason, as you know, we are having some Spielworxx news items. So Conworks, the Spielworxx online convention, will be held on October 9 and 10, and there is now quite a bit of info on my website. I'd love to have you as participants. So, and you may also win a game. So please check it out. And I'm trying to post now the URL for Conworks here. So give me some seconds. So let me do this quickly. And it should be in here now. Yeah, this worked out. And second news item is late last week, Dan Thoreau, aka Spacebiff, he published his The Cost review, and that review had blown me away. So, as regular readers of this chat know, I'm a huge Spacebiff fan, and in my opinion, he is the best game reviewer worldwide, period. And this most positive review was simply outstanding, and I'm really proud of the whole Spielworxx team. So, of Harald as the artist, of Henning as the developer, and of course of the whole design team. So really, truly amazing. And if you haven't read that review of the cost, I'll try to post that URL here now too. So let me see. Do I manage? Oh, I manage. Yeah, and I see already some people here in the chat. So hello Daniel, hello Claude, of course, and Claude makes a remark. Jason, it's great that you are not late this time. And Chris is there. Hi, Chris. I saw you on Twitter before. Mo is there, so the designer of the cost, or one of the or the lead designer, let's put it that way, and Mr. Retirement, so the podfather of gaming. So Stephen, great to see you here, Stephen. So yeah, um, let's get into the main topic today, and Jason here. Um, Please give us some personal background of you first.
Uh, well, just to give you an idea of my mindset, my mantra on life, it's just to spread happiness and to spread smiles. That comes from, without getting into too many details, I had a very rough childhood. My parents divorced when I was very young, and certain fallout that came from that. And I spent the majority of my youth and my teen years and some of my 20s battling depression, um, some very dark times. And uh, at the age of 12, I met my then girlfriend, now wife, Donna, and we've been together for over 2/3 of our lives. And she has been the anchor and the lifeline that's kept me, kept me from going too far with when the depression would hit, and who helped me to understand the value of life and of happiness. And so now, um, because of all of that, she and I, we try to do what we can, just to spread smiles, spread happiness, and we try to enjoy life. I mean, things aren't always as you want them, but we try to
Yeah.
find the good things, and and that kind of leads into what got me into game designing.
Yeah, but before you designed games or started designing games, what made you or what got you interested in tabletop gaming at all? Because not everybody is playing games. So what was?
Well, when my parents divorced, I lived with my dad, and he worked offshore and different things with his schedule. I spent quite a bit of time with my grandparents. The AI that you play against in Captains of the Gulf Solo, Captain TJ, is in homage to my grandfather. So my grandmother, we would sit there on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon when I was, little, 6, 7, 8, and we would play Go Fish with just a regular deck of cards, or Battle. So she was my earliest memories of gaming was gaming with her, and then of course the mass market games as you get older
Yeah.
with Monopoly and Scrabble and things like that. Modern gaming, we got into that about now 6 years ago, and I was drawing comic books on the independent. I still have my day job, but I was just doing that semi-professionally for
Hmm.
some independent publishers. One artist I followed posted on Twitter that he was doing art for a new board game, and I didn't know anything about any new board games, and looked into that and discovered, Dominion and Ticket to Ride and things like that. And once we discovered Agricola, then everything changed, and then it was Spielworxx and Splotter, and just
Oh, I
discovering a
think.
whole new world of
Mhm.
game. It's the gist of my gaming life.
Okay, so what are your favorite types of games? So I can think about some kinds of games because of your design work, but what are the games that you are enjoying most? Or are you an omni gamer? You play everything. So what are you doing here?
I'm definitely not an omni gamer. For the most part, I only play things that Don and I enjoy together because 99% of our gaming is the two of us at home. There's one or two solo games, war games that I'll play, but otherwise it's all things that she and I enjoy. We enjoy a few dexterity games, Crokinole, things like that, Clask. Some lighter, smaller games, but those kind of have to stand out. For the most part, what we enjoy is the medium to medium plus, starting to dip your toe into the heavy. We'll pull out an 18xx, but that's once a year. Most of what we play is the 1 hour medium, Euro game strategy with a bit of player interaction. So that's mostly what we play, which is what I enjoy.
Okay.
Economic strategy games.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. And I see a nice question by Nick. So hello, Nick here from the UK. But Nick, I would like to postpone that question somewhat before because I would like to first talk about briefly about Captains of the Gulf. So, Jason, what made you design Captains of the Gulf? What was the reason? Because you are a gamer, but not every gamer designs. So,
Yeah, I never had any intention to design, and in the past, my jobs, I have 2 day jobs, and they both involve a lot of math. And in the past, friends had said, "Well, you do a lot of this stuff with play so many games. Why don't you design?" I said, "No, that's for people way more creative than me. I don't think I'd ever be able to do that." But gaming is a huge part of our lives. So um, Valentine's Day 2016, Don and I, our kids were grown and gone, so they were doing things with their significant others at the time. We played a few games, we cooked a meal together, ate, played a few games, just enjoyed a nice evening at home, and went to bed. At midnight, I sat up out of bed, woke up from a very vivid dream of she and I playing a game that is about 99% what Captains of the Gulf turned out to be. With the multi-use cards were being tucked under, which at the time I had not played any Chuddick games, but I had played a lot of La Granja, so it's expired. Excuse me, it was inspired from that, and the way you spend your fuel to move. And there were a few other things that obviously that were pulled out, but the heart of the game was right there. And as I mentioned, I grew up. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and they for a portion of my life, you could say they raised me because I was here so much on the weekends and during the summer. And my grandfather, he's kind of the jack of all trades, master of many. He had done many things in his lifetime and excelled at them, and which is kind of where I get woodworking, playing bass guitar, skateboarding, designing it, where I get all of that from. So one of the things he had done, he had run boats back in the 1950s here in Morgan City. Shrimp and petroleum industries are very huge, especially back in that timeline. So we, the game just kind of grew from there. It was in my heart, and I had to get it out. And so I started as a dream, and literally became a dream come true when you reached out and asked for a prototype, because I didn't think you even knew I existed or my name. And Spielworxx is my absolute favorite company even back then.
yeah, yeah, but sometimes you see that there is this international network everybody is having. So, of course, we weren't in touch before, but as you mentioned, for you, for Captains of the Gulf with the multi use cards, La Granja was an inspiration. So and of course, Ode he's local, so he's living 35 minutes by car from me, and we are testing together. And he said, "Well, I may have a game here. It's from a U.S. Friend I'm having." And so you see there are connections, and at that time, so yeah, that was wonderful. I tested the game with Ode over here, and yeah, the rest is history here. Before we go to the main topic of today here, I think Crescent City Cargo, I would now like to go to Nick's question, because he touches of something that you are famous for as well. So I'm reading this question for Jason. You are a very talented wood butcher, joiner. Have you ever considered making a game out of wood, like the old Ludo art titles, Master Thieves, Black Elephant, and Taurus? So have you ever thought in these directions?
I have, but as you and I were talking before the stream started, if I'm designing something, it has to be Louisiana themed. I've tried designing other themes, and they just run out of steam. It's not in my spirit. I can't do it. It's just something about when I'm designing a game that's Louisiana themed. It's just in my soul. So I have to find the right theme that would work mechanically with. I have thought about it. I've sketched some things out as far as wooden components and games. Kind of Oda and I have talked about mixing, dexterity and Euro games. He's got something. I won't go into the details for spoiling something he's working on, but he's got some ideas he's worked on previously. So I have thought about it, but the right theme has to grab me first, so I can make it work.
Okay. Okay, so Nick, right now, no luck here. So, but then, what got you after you've done Captains of the Gulf? The first edition was sold out very quickly, but as we all know, Spielworxx is only doing 1,000 copies. But I think it was a huge success. And so, what made you then design Crescent City Cargo? So, the second game you are doing. So, what was the reason to design that?
Initially, I didn't have any intention of designing a trilogy. I began studying the Spanish Civil War, which was something we didn't really learn about in my history classes in America. We went, World War One, World War Two, and everything that happened in World War Two just washed over. Spanish Civil War is fascinating to me when you learn about everything that happened, and so um, I started designing a game about that where the player the morale of your units was a currency. Um, but again, because it wasn't Louisiana themed, I just couldn't help it. I got so far, and I just couldn't make anything else work. I couldn't figure out how to push further. And I came across this image. Well, just there's several historical Facebook and Twitter pages that have historical images of Louisiana, and I was just scrolling through, just enjoying the images, and I found a picture of a floating grain elevator loading cargo on a steamship from the early 1900s. I believe the picture was 1906, 1908, somewhere in there, and it just hit me. And I grabbed my notebook, I started writing down notes, and the Port of New Orleans is a huge, uh, trying to think of the right word for this. It's an asset. It's a huge asset to just commerce in the United States, because the Mississippi River and the Gulf and joining, how everything can, from there, from that one conduit, everything can go out on rail lines and inland barges and huge cargo ships that sail internationally. And I just started designing the game, and because of the time that it happened in, the early 1900s leading up to the Great Depression, the morale of your workers was a valuable currency. There's actually some things in the game where I won't give too much away, where the workers on your player board are lined up in a straight line, and that brings to I did that on purpose, because I thought of, as the Great Depression was coming on, how the workers would line up around the block hoping to get work for that day, just to be able to eat and feed their families, and so there's a lot of things thematically that just came together. And the game is very different than my Spanish Civil War game. With the sole thing that came over was you're spending the morale of workers, and then you have to boost that back up to continue working, sort of an income, I guess.
Yeah, so what we will now do, Jason, of course, if you want to do this, maybe you can touch on some of the key mechanics of the game. At the same time, I will bring up here the board, the Crescent City Cargo board from the Vessel module up. So, and if Jason is describing this, I will try to spot the parts of the board that will highlight what he's talking about. So please continue here. Please tell us some of the key mechanics of this game. So,
So
yeah.
you're competing logistics companies, receiving goods, delivering goods, building the infrastructure of your companies up to make it, to make it better for when you do those things, to give you advantages and profit and abilities. Um, so there is a warehouse area in New Orleans as the warehouse district, and so that's represented by six different warehouses that have a number of cubes depending on player count.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a warehouse manager who moves around. It's a rondel. Um, as I started designing this, the idea was one piece that this game is very interactive.
Mm-hmm.
About 99% of the actions that you'll take in the game affect the game state for everyone. But it's all, for the most part, open information so you can see and plan. And it doesn't mess you up where I do this thing and now you have no options. You just have to have a plan A, a plan B. And that's another thing Donna and I like in games where planning is critical, and maybe you do something where I have to adjust my plan. Well, Crescent City Cargo is all about that.
Mm-hmm.
So as the warehouse manager moves, you'll move that piece one or two spaces. You can pay to move more. And then where they land, you can pick up goods from one of the two warehouses adjacent, either in front of or behind. And as I was designing that, where'd that come from? And I thought back to our plays of Lisboa with the cardinal that you move, and there it's a very small part of the game. And I just said, I'm going to make this the heart of the game. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
take that mechanic, that shared rondel, and make it the heart of the game. And I expanded on that by having the port, which has six locations for the stevedore, or the port worker that will move around. And again, all workers on your turn, if you choose to go deliver goods, you'll move that one piece that will affect where all players have an option to deliver them. And there you have cargo ships, you have shipping containers, you have trains you're delivering to. Each type of delivery, I won't go too much in the detail now, but it's different benefits for delivering to the different types and what happens. And the spaces are limited. So as we deliver, again, it changes the game state for everyone for what your options are. Um,
Yes.
the board also has an admin area where you have three aspects of your company that you can improve. And I wanted there to have where building the engine of the game. There's two types of engines you can build. One, on those admin tracks, we all have the ability to build a similar type of engine, and then with our trucks and our offices, we can build unique engines. And but you're spending to do that. You're spending the same goods that you score, that you make money, which is your points. So I
Yes.
so I like that give and take there. That was something I wanted to do. And then, as I mentioned, you have offices that you build. There are 14 offices. They're
Yes.
all unique.
They're over
So
here.
you're going to
Yeah.
build a very, a unique and different engine. You have trucks, which determine how much you can pick up and deliver and what types and things like that. Throughout it all, the timer for the game is also one of your currencies, and that is your workers. All players have the same number of workers. They
These are
are,
workers.
yeah, they're separated into different groups at the bottom of your player board. They incrementally get more expensive to hire, and as you get towards the end, one of the most common in-game trigger is when someone's hired from that last group, and
Yes.
then you finish that round of turns, and you have three more rounds where each player gets one more turn, and then you do final scoring. There are goal cards, so there's a hidden individual. There's scoring for different things you've done in the game as far as deliveries and things like that. Certain offices give you boosts that allow you to score. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but that's the gist of the game and how it operates.
Yeah, and what I like here, let me bring this down for a second. What I like a lot in this game, let's go one step back is. So we are having here a trilogy of games, and we will touch on the third game in a couple of minutes, very briefly too. We are having three games by the same designer. And yes, you know they are coming from the same designer, but yet mechanically they are totally different. So that is what I'm liking a lot. So if you are thinking Crescent City Cargo, of course, this one is in a port. But if you think this one would be mechanically the same thing as Captains of the Gulf, no, you're totally wrong. And what I like a lot about CCC is that there is a lot of planning in the game, and you have to plan which resources do I need? Do I sell to a ship? Do I sell to a train? Or how am I building my engine on the administrative tracks? But still, a turn is very fast, so there is not a lot of downtime, even in a four-player game. So this is something that is really very well done, because when it's your player turn, you are doing only one of several actions that are available, and then it's the next player. And as Jason has just mentioned, the game has an open end, so you can't say this is over after 10 turns. No, there's something. There are some game end triggers, and then the game will be over very, very soon. And of course, as you also know, Spielworxx is theme and topic, and this game has a lot of theme and is topically very, very strong. And as Dan is saying in the chat, he's saying, I played CCC at BGGCon last year and really enjoyed. So thank you, Daniel. So it was probably because I was sitting next to you and tried to distract you from playing well. So no, thank you of course for playing there. And then there is somebody else, G. Cummings, and he says, wow, I love the idea, games that require lots of plan adjustment. So yeah, I think if you are saying in CCC, I plan this right from the start, it won't be possible because of the goal cards, because of other things, how the resources are distributed. You have to be opportunistic too, but of course you need to play really, really well. And last thing before it's back to Jason is both of these games, so Crescent City Cargo and Captains of the Gulf, but the second edition of that game, they will be kickstarted in October by Indie Boards and Cards and Stronghold Games. So if you are interested in finally having a chance to pick up Captains of the Gulf, and of course first chance for CCC, you should watch Kickstarter. And of course both Indie and Spielworxx, we will announce this as soon as there is a firm date. We will announce it so that you, if you are interested, have a chance to back that game. And Matt Wolf, hello Matt, he's saying, I swear all Daniel did at BGGCon was play prototypes. Yeah, true. Somebody has to do the job, and what can you do? Yeah, and Daniel is answering, I mean, I played a lot of Protos for sure. Yeah. But let's move briefly to the third game in the Cajun trilogy of games, that is Acadians. So would you like to tell us briefly some details about that game, Jason?
Yes. I'll say one thing real quick. What to go on what you were mentioning earlier about the trilogy. Um, my designs, there are four tenets that I try to adhere to in all my designs. One is that it has to be driven by theme. As I mentioned, if the theme isn't in my soul, I can't do it. The second is that there's little to no downtime on the player's turn when it's
Very
not your
good.
turn.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one, that there's plenty of opportunity for tactical play and interaction, though it's not like a direct attack, just things that you're not just playing your own little game off to the side, which is not bad. Just when I design, that's how I do. And then lastly is that planning is critical. You can learn to play the game, but then playing it well or better than others, you really have to dive into the planning aspect of it. So with that said, Acadians has all those same four tenets as the other two do. Acadians was actually inspired as an idea, though very different gameplay mechanics, about 3.5, 4 years ago, not long after I started working on Captains of the Gulf, we played our first splatter game, which is Roads and Boats.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you, having played Acadians quite a bit, would go, that really, they're two very different games.
Yes.
True, but the idea of in Roads and Boats where you start with donkeys and you eventually have, UPS or DHL delivery vans, where you're building up your it's not a civ game, obviously it's an economic game, but it's a logistics game. You build that idea of working with the land that you have to build up and improve your technology. That fascinated me, and Morgan City has a very rich history. As I said, that's what Captains of the Gulf is about, the shrimping in the 1950s. My trilogy actually goes backwards in time, so that Captains of the Gulf 1950s, shrimp boats, Crescent City Cargo is the early 1900s, Port of New Orleans, and the Acadians is the Morgan City area around the 17 and 1800s, when Spain owned it and the Acadian people were kicked out of Nova Scotia by the British. Some went back to France. They eventually settled here, and it was a very hard life settling the swamp. The Spanish weren't too keen on fighting alligators and tigers that we had down here, and so the Cajuns were quite hardened by their sailing down the eastern seaboard trying to find a new home. So in that, that's what the game is about thematically. And at the time I started to build what is the current and final version of it, I was really wanting to design a war game, and with where you have an event on a card or you have action points. And I found that action points, for what I was doing, I'm not gonna say it can't be done. I could not do it well, but the action points were too open ended for a Euro game. There was no decision made. I just did this or I just did that. And I had a smaller prototype where you had action discs, where the colors of the discs match certain types of actions, and there's kind of an I split you choose thing. And so I thought about kind of merging those two in a way, and that's what we have now, where the heart of the game is all players start with a hand of matching 8 cards, and you play.
Jason, I'm just putting up here the photo from the Vessel Test game board. Of course, these are not final graphics, but in this way, maybe some people can follow this a little bit easier. So here in the bottom right, you're seeing 8 cards. So each player starts with 8 cards, and the top here shows the action part with discs of various colors. So brown, white, gray, and black. And below this, there's the event part. So you're playing as a player 1 card at a time, and then you have to decide to either use the top part with the action discs or the event part. But please continue, Jason. I'm leaving this one up here
Okay.
for a few seconds.
So what the game has 2 interlinked rondelles, which is the city of Morgan City, which is an actual, we're kind of an island in the swamp, and then the swamp land around it. And players move their boats, which back then the early cages they had pirogues and bateaux, wooden hull boats. They would move them around to harvest, whether you're hunting alligators, trapping muskrats, digging up clay, or chopping down trees. And then you use those things. You're building camps, you're building churches, you are trading with the Spanish merchants on either side of the town, and there's different economies involved. The economy of your discs, because your discs that you use over a 2 round period are then locked for the next 2 rounds. So you can't just keep playing your cards the same way. You have to plan out how you're going to do that. Again, planning very important in my games. And the game, uh, again, there's a lot of interaction, how things work. Louisiana is the only state in 50 states. We don't have counties. Most states have so many cities make a county. We have parishes, because when Louisiana became a state, all of the cities in the territories they revolved around a church, and the church
Okay.
had parishioners, so it became a parish. So that's why building churches is very important in the game. It's very important to our history in Louisiana. The game plays over 6 rounds. Every 2 rounds is a year. There's some scoring that happens in there, and then there's a final scoring that happens. You have different incomes and economies, like I mentioned, that you're managing throughout the game. I'm trying not to give too much away.
I don't know. This is fine, and of course, this game won't be out very soon. We are still testing this. There will be some changes, but but the engine already is in great shape, and all the rest will need time, but we will work it out. So again, I'm love testing Acadians, and I think we are restarting next week, aren't we, Jason?
Yes.
So
Well, you
yeah,
said you wanted to do one Crescent City Cargo first because
uh,
you wanted to try that module.
uh, okay. So we'll we'll work it out when we restart Acadians. But I'm excited to test all these games with Jason. There's another good thing that we have found a good time. So he tests in the morning. It's for me. It's afternoon, and then we can play together using a vessel. And I think. This really is a very good thing that we are in touch, although we are long distance away, and can do something here. And again, it's great seeing that all three games are using very different engines. So I like this a lot. Let me briefly check the chat window here if there is something here. Yeah, Stephen, thank you. So he's saying looking forward to all of the Cajun trilogy for sure. And somebody else, Butler Sox 20, he's saying had a chance to play the Acadians Proto with Jason. It's going to be great as well. So thank you, and of course thank you all for testing the game. Mo is saying sold on Acadian, so wow, what shall we do? So done. And of course, Claude is also saying I tested Acadians once and would be happy to test again. Great game. So yeah, I think Jason, what is also true is that no game designer is perfect right from the start, and although Captains of the Gulf is and was a tremendous first design from a new designer. You see that with each new game, Crescent City Cargo and Acadians, other influences entering the view, and you have more experience, and this is all together. It's simply a great thing. So I'm very happy. Do you have any more questions here? So please post them. Otherwise, I will just repeat that both Crescent City Cargo, so the second game of the Cajun trilogy, and Captains of the Gulf, which is the original first game in this trilogy, they will go to Kickstarter next month. So you can get both of them together, or you can get only one of them. If you are having the first edition of Captains of the Gulf, you can say, no, I don't need this one again, so I'm just backing Crescent City Cargo, so the second game. And somebody is saying you're answering the question to ask about Kickstarter. Yeah, you can only back one of them. Is there a launch date yet for the Kickstarter? Daniel is asking. No, there is no firm date. I can just say October. So we will say very soon. So of course you will see this from Indie Boards and Cards, but you can bet on this. Both Jason and I will post this everywhere where we are present. So BGG, for me it's Twitter. Jason is probably everywhere. He's at TikTok probably with his dance moves each day. So no, I don't know. But we will definitely, as soon as we have that firm date, we will mention it.
And these is this Kickstarter only? There's not a retail. So if someone wants to get them, it's not a retail later. Is that correct?
And yes, so Stephen is saying I'll post that too. So thank you, Stephen. Yes, but that's correct, and that's a very important remark, Jason. So thank you for that, because if you want to get the first edition of Crescent City Cargo and or the second edition of Captains of the Gulf, you should really try. You should back the game or the games at Kickstarters, because it's unsure if this game will go into distribution afterwards. One thing is certain, for at least 9 to 12 months, this will be the only option to get the game, so at Kickstarter. If the demand is that high, there may be a general distribution edition afterwards. But these days, with COVID-19 around, nobody knows what the market will be in 9 to 12 months. So if you would like to have this game, please check them out at Kickstarter. Yeah. And Mo is already I can see him dancing. So Jason, so you must be at TikTok. So I think that would be great. Yeah, actually, we are at 35 minutes. Jason, it was my pleasure and give my warm regards to Donna. Hope to see you both in person very soon. So, sometimes maybe late next year. One thing of industry news, maybe because it was posted today, you know that the Nuremberg Toy Fair, the Spielwarenmesse Nuremberg, it is in late January, early February in Germany, and that date was still in. So they said up till yesterday, yes, we are doing this Spielwarenmesse in late January in Germany because it's a trade fair. So we will have less people. But of course, it's also, as the name says, international toy fair. It's international. And right now it's very difficult in international traveling, so they postponed the Spielwarenmesse to sometimes in summer. So sometimes in summer 2021, no firm date given at that time. But you see how difficult it is right now with trade shows, with fairs, with conventions. But Jason, my pleasure. Donna, my pleasure. And I hope that we can meet sometimes maybe late next year in person and play some games again.
I hope so too, and I hope I did well because, as I told you beforehand, it's funny. You and I communicate several times a week. We Skype almost once a week, and for all the live streams and podcasts I've been on before, this is the first time I've been nervous, only because it's you, and it had to be perfect for you.
No, no, for
Not
me.
that you said so. I said so.
So,
I
you know, the least perfect person in this podcast is me. Somebody could phone. I'm forgetting my own email address as last week. So anything is possible. So anything is great. So it was wonderful seeing you. Thank you for all the details on the games. And if you, as viewers, would like to see a special topic discussed or have a specific question that you'd like to ask in advance, please drop me a mail at uli@spielworxx.de. That is uli@spielworxx.de. And see, this time I remembered my email address, so my work is done. Thank you very much. Bleibt gesund and Black Lives Matter. Bye bye.